Welcome to the Infuse Compassion podcast, hosted by me, Amy Quisenberry.
And me, Mark Carpenter.
We are on a mission to make this world a kinder place for us all by bringing healthier human connection to communities, families, and organizations of all types and sizes.
Our goal is to create stronger relationships, more inspired teams, increased trust, and improved results.
So let's get started with more ways to infuse compassion into our world.
Welcome, Compassionators, to this episode of the Infuse Compassion podcast. So glad you're here with us. I hope you had the opportunity to listen last week to Lindsay Schiess. She's a counselor, a psychologist, and just a brilliant communicator about principles too of connecting with ourselves and connecting with others. And so I'm glad that Amy and I have the opportunity to talk a little bit about what we learned from listening to Lindsay. But make sure you go back and listen to that episode. You're going to have a lot of takeaways from that if you haven't had a chance to listen to her. In fact, speaking of takeaways, my friend Amy, what were some of your takeaways from the conversation with Lindsay?
Well, you know, her work, what she does, and I would say the pillars that she functions in, is very near and dear to my heart. So much of it is directly in line with the Start with Compassion framework that I built out, the connection that she speaks about. I was like, oh my gosh, she's saying it exactly how I say this. I love this. It was so powerful for me to hear Lindsay, an incredible therapist, speak about this. I was like, oh my gosh, further validating what I created from my heart and the connection to the higher power that I have. And so the connection, the awareness, silencing the judger, all of these things that she spoke about is what I speak about in the work that I do. And you know, she talked about slowing down. Oh my goodness. She talked about listening to lead. Or no.
That was my
Listen
phrase.
first. You said that. She said, listen first, lead second. And I almost started to cry when she said, listen first, lead second. Because I don't know why that like got me, but it like really struck something so strong in me of listen first, lead second. Because truly, for you to be an effective leader, regardless of what your role is, leader in your family, leader in the community, a leader in your own life, your life, the life that you lead, you need to listen and you need to connect. Or your listening helps you connect, I should say.
Yeah.
So these are just some like, here it is, Mark. But I would love to hear from you as well.
Well, so I'm going to just follow on with that listening pillar, because that's one of the pillars that I have in Lead Like a Person, is that if you are listening, you are leading. Listening intently is one of the best ways to lead like a person, because there is nothing greater that you can do to help somebody feel seen than to listen to them and to listen to what they have to say. In fact, I want to call out some cool research. We talked a little bit with Lindsay about it after we finished recording, but there's a great researcher named Oscar Tremboli from Australia who has written a book called How to Listen. And part of the research that he has there is what he calls the 125, 400, 900 rule. And what that means is we, on average, as English speakers, can speak at about 125 words per minute. Now, some fast speakers go a little faster than that, but there's slower people who speak slower than that. We can speak at about 125 words per minute, but we can listen at about 400 words per minute. This is why you can turn a podcast on and set it to 1.5 or 2 times speed and still understand what's going on, because you can listen faster than they can talk. Mm-hmm. But the 900 is we think at about 900 words per minute. Mm-hmm. And I love that research because it points out the challenge that we have in listening. Somebody's talking at 125 words per minute. Our mind is thinking at 900 words per minute. So we're always anticipating, we're always jumping ahead. And Lindsay's comment about slow down, I think listening is only possible by slowing down our thinking so that we are focused really on what the person is saying. And so that is one of the pillars that I think is so important in leadership, but just in life and in connecting with people, is to be conscious about our listening, slow the brain down so we can really listen to what they have to say. And to me, that is one of the key pillars of leadership, is listening well.
Yeah. It's interesting because how many times, Mark, have you said to yourself out loud or in reflection, I knew I should have listened to myself. Oh, I knew I told myself I shouldn't have done. I told myself I should have done it and I didn't listen. How many times has that happened?
Yeah, and it's interesting. Lindsay also talked about connecting to higher powers. And a lot of times I think those little nudges come to us from some of those higher powers that we're connected to. And so it's not just listening to ourselves, but listening to the best part of ourselves and listening to that higher power that we're connected with that's going to move us in the right direction. I'll give a quick example for right now. Those that are watching on YouTube may notice that this is not my normal background behind me because I'm sitting in a hotel conference room. The internet went out at our house overnight. There was a water main break and it interrupted the Google Fiber lines. And so they were working on it. I had to find someplace else to do it. This morning, as I was doing my morning routine, I had the thought, oh, just turn the TV on and watch this news segment. And I went, no, I don't usually do that in the morning. I like to keep it a little quieter. But just that little nudge said, turn it on. So, okay. So I turned it on. That's where I found out my internet was out.
Wow.
And it gave me a couple of hours head start on trying to solve the problem and trying to find a workaround. And so I think that's an example of what you're saying. We need to listen to those impulses, even when they may not seem big or flashy or important, but listen to those little impulses that can lead you in the right direction.
I love that story. I love that story because it's so true. It's so true. Somewhere, something inside you knew, something like you said was nudging you. Isn't that fascinating? I also liked that she talked about our bodies, like to feel things, to really feel it, and to get curious about it, not judgmental, but go to the curiosity. And I think that that's so important. I know that, there's just one of my favorite things when I don't know is to just ask. And I do this thing where I say truth because you can't lie to yourself, right? So when you say truth, what do I need right now? Truth, what does my body need right now? It's fascinating. You and I were talking earlier about animals eating particular foods, right? And I remember thinking in that conversation, sometimes our body craves things. It's like, well, I wonder where that's coming from. It's the body calling out and saying, there's some type of nutrition that you're not getting, some type of deficit, something that your body is trying to get. Sometimes, like, I know this is probably silly, but salt. I'm not a big potato chip eater, but sometimes I'm like, I don't even want the chip. I want the salt on the chip. And it's like, okay, Amy, we've got to get some healthy sodium in you. We don't need to go to chips, but your body needs that sodium or I'm sure a nutritionist could speak to this much better than I could, but our bodies are talking to us all the time, all day long. Our bodies are trying to get through to us, tell us what we need to know, and to slow down, as Lindsay said, take a beat and listen.
Now I've just got this image of Amy licking the sodium off a potato chip stuck into my head as we're talking about this. But to that point, she talked about slowing down and the value and importance of breathing and
Mm.
of taking a breath. And it reminded me of a conversation I had with one of my sisters years ago, where we were talking about the importance of taking deep breaths. And she said, until I stop and think, take a deep breath, I don't realize how shallow my breathing is normally. That we normally breathe just kind of enough to get by. But if we stop and take those deep breaths, and the way that Lindsay put it was breathe in for 4 seconds, breathe out for eight, because it's going
Mhm.
to help reset you by taking that deeper breath and exhaling slowly. And that's where you realize you're talking about your body craving, how much your body craves that deep breath, that deeper intake of oxygen. My
Mhm.
my daughter has this strategy skill that she uses with her kids that when they get upset, she always encourages them to take a breath, stop,
Mhm.
take a breath, breathe. Funny incident when her oldest daughter was 4 years old. They were at our house and all the cousins were there. And so at this time, there were, I think, 9 of them who were there at the house. And they were all playing in the basement. All the adults were upstairs and it was loud downstairs. Well, my daughter and I kind of looked at each other and went, yeah, we should probably go downstairs and just check out what's going on because they'd been down there by themselves for a while. So she and I went downstairs. Her 4 year old runs over to me. He goes, Grandpa, and she could not get the words out of her mouth.
Mm.
And her mom looked at her and said, honey, just take a breath. And she literally held up both index fingers. And she said, Mom, I'll breathe in a minute. Okay. And I always think of that story because don't we do that to ourselves? We
Mm.
get so busy that we say, I'll breathe in a minute.
Yeah.
But if you take a moment to take the breath in the moment, it's going to reset you so that
Mhm.
you can actually be more effective. If if this little girl had stopped and taken the deep breath, then she
Mhm.
probably could have clearly articulated what she was trying to get out of her mouth. She was just so excited about it, she couldn't get it out.
Yeah.
But she felt like I'm too busy to take a breath. And I think we sometimes do that to ourselves.
Mhm. Yeah. This is a really big one. I don't know if I've shared this on the podcast before, but years ago, when I was driving on the freeway here in San Diego, a car ran me off the road. And to this day, when I see a white vehicle to my left, I go to fear. I've done a lot of therapy, a lot of EMDR therapy, a lot of talk therapy, but I was a terrible white knuckle passenger for a very, very long time. And my my husband honestly deserves a medal because my fear that was in my body would then come out of my mouth with this, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, way more intense than that, right? Of in my head, I'm seeing cars that in my mind are telling me they're going to come in our lane. And so, um, what I learned to do is see that fear, feel that fear, and then breathe the fear out. It is the breathing that absolutely saved my life and probably my marriage with this because just imagine what that must have felt like, Fred, for Fred to have to drive a vehicle with this person who's almost hyperventilating next to him, and not once or twice, for years, over and over and over again. And I would intentionally say, put me in the back seat. I'm a terrible passenger. Put me in the back seat. The further you can get me away from the driver, the safer it is for everybody. And I felt terrible. But thank goodness I'm much better now. But I had to do the work, and breathing was at the core of it.
Yeah, and that goes back to the slowing down and trying to understand too.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm sure that Fred had to have some times where he goes, "Where is this coming from?" And you had to get within yourself and slow down enough to say, "This is trauma triggered by that past accident.
Yeah.
Okay, I can't get myself over it in the moment. So slow down
Mm-hmm.
now. And what can I do to get past that?" And then it takes
Yeah.
the work to get there, to
Mm-hmm.
make that happen. And I loved that when Lindsay talked about slowing down and as a way to help other people to listen to them, but just the one question that she had, tell me more. Tell me more about this.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the points that stood out to me, because I really believe in this too, is that kind of listening, that kind of slowing down to put humanity into your leadership builds loyalty. This builds trust and loyalty and commitment on the team, where those people who feel like you care about them as a human being, not just as a tool in the toolbox of the company, but as a
Mm-hmm.
human being, they will go to bat for you. They will do their best work for you. You will get their discretionary effort because they feel like they belong there, and they feel seen as a human being.
Well, and I want to go back. I want to use this example to then also go back to what we were talking about previously, because the compassion that Fred showed wasn't just it's for Amy to do all the work. I had to explain to him, listen, when you drive in XYZ way, it makes me feel unsafe. So
Mhm.
if you don't do this, then I won't do that. So there was a little bit of but I couldn't communicate this until again I took the breath, released the fear, and then I could articulate how I was feeling. And that was such and then it was his responsibility to listen, to receive, and then make the choice. Am I going to alter my behavior? Am I going to alter my behavior so that it's a better experience for Amy and it's a better experience for me? And that's the dynamic in any relationship, the give and take of how are you coming to the relationship and connecting with yourself first to figure out what you need, and then sharing that with your partner. And then what is your partner doing? Are they doing the same with you? Are they coming and sharing, hey, this is what I need, this is what I need to really prosper here?
Yeah. And again, that builds relationships. It strengthens and it produces better outcomes, whether it's talking about a relationship at home or a work relationship or a community relationship, an extended family relationship, whatever it happens to be. That kind of willingness to work together helps. And the curiosity that comes from slowing down when somebody else is experiencing something, to slow down and say, what's really going on with that person?
Mm-hmm.
There's a question that we ask in some of the training that I do. It's Crucial Conversations training from Crucial Learning. And it's a great question that when you see someone that does something that triggers you a little bit, their question is to ask yourself, why would a reasonable, rational, decent person do that?
Mm-hmm.
Why would a reasonable, rational, decent person do that? Because what you're doing with that question is you're humanizing the other person. You're saying they're a reasonable, rational, decent person that's got something going on with them that leads them to act that way. I mean, your reaction in the car, it'd be easy to go, this person's crazy. There's something wrong with her that she's acting this way when there's nothing going on. There's no problem here in the car.
Mm-hmm.
But to stop and say, why would a reasonable, rational, decent person do that? And then simply ask, so what is going on with you here? Because I'll tell you, when I ask myself that question, my most common answer to the question, why would a reasonable, rational, decent person do this, is I don't know. But I don't know leads me to be curious. And it will put me into a state where it's easier for me to go to that person and say, hey, I noticed this behavior. Where's that coming from? What's going on with you right now?
Mm-hmm.
Just find out what's going on.
And I just want to underline the absence of judgment in everything that you said,
Yeah.
right? That nowhere throughout, as you were talking, was there any judgment at all. And that's the thing with the curiosity is I always like to say it's not just curiosity because we can come in with the hammer, right? Oh, what's behind this? Let's, open this up. No. This is a gentle curiosity without judgment that we're talking about
Yeah.
here, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because genuine curiosity is without judgment.
Mhm.
It's genuinely trying to understand.
Mhm.
And if you are genuinely curious, you're not going to come with the hammer. You're going to come with eyes and ears opening. So this goes back to listening to really try to understand what's going on with the other person.
Mhm. What else, Mark?
Oh, journaling. I was going to hit
Hmm.
on journaling in there. That I'm a terrible journaler. I've never consistently been one who journals, but Lindsay made such a great point about the power of just getting stuff out. And journaling doesn't have to mean I sit down and write out everything I did that day, but to just capture what's been going on inside of me just so that I can get it out there. Sometimes it's easier to deal with once it's out here in front of me rather than tumbling around in the mixed up brain that I have between my ears here. And
Mhm.
so I just thought that was really interesting that she found journaling as one of the helpful techniques to help people understand what's going on with themselves. And again, maybe slow it down a little bit so that you can address what's really happening within your body and within your mind.
When you said that, you made me think about. Hold on. First, I have a question. Is there something when you say I'm not really good at journaling? Is there something that gets in that stops you from journaling?
Mostly it's developing the habit, but I think it's also tools. Lindsay made that point that she does a lot of journaling, just voice memos on her phone. And when
Mm,
she said that, I went, "Ooh, I might be able to do that." But the old sit down and write stuff out every night before you go to bed, I just can never
yeah,
get myself into the habit of doing that because there's always more to do. And
yeah.
it kind of goes back to that idea of, no, I don't have time for this.
Mm. So when I was listening to you talk, I was reminded of this of a course that I just took the other day. Kristen Neff, who is like a pioneer in the world of compassion. So much of the research and the data that we have today is because of the work that she did. So she's just absolutely brilliant and incredible. I attended a workshop of hers, and she had us do an exercise where she walked us through how we would approach somebody that was struggling through something.
Hmm.
What would we say? What would we do? How would we do it? What would our body posture be? Would we reach out? How would we listen? Would we ask questions? What would they be like? And then she had us do that same exercise with how do you treat yourself? And you know what I learned, Mark, in the
Please,
difference?
please tell me.
I listen to other people so much better than I listen to myself. That was like the big difference is I dismiss, I minimalize, I justify. Dismiss and minimalize is one of the two things that I did the most, but all of this fell under the umbrella of Amy, you have an opportunity to listen to yourself more, which is what Lindsay is talking about, that
Yep.
connection. That connection. Mm,
Well, and she talked about how important it is to do that because if we don't start there, we're not going to be able to be compassionate to other people. If we're not
mhm,
listening to what's going on inside of ourselves, it's really hard to listen to other people because that's going to be a distraction that's going on within us. So it doesn't
mhm.
surprise me that that was your conclusion from that. I was thinking, what would the answer be for me? And it would be, oh, yeah, I don't listen to myself nearly as well as I listen to other people.
Why do you think we do that, Mark?
I don't know. I don't know other than it sometimes seems maybe selfish to take that time for myself when I know I want to be compassionate to other people. But I don't know what's driving that. I think that'd be an interesting thing to come up with. I think maybe we need to get Kristen Neff on as a guest and we can ask her that question.
Let's do that. Let's do that. All right, my dear. What else? Anything else?
I think that hit it. I guess the only other thing that I would get to was that achievement mentality that really has driven a lot of this, and that makes us not slow down. I thought she had an interesting analogy of car commercials. That if you look back in history, auto commercials were more about leisure and luxury and taking care of yourself. And now it's about how fast can you get someplace. She talked about getting to the high rise or getting to the office building. And to me, I was thinking a lot of the car commercials now are focused on power and speed. And that's what life's all about. And so it's really kind of driving that achievement mentality. And it's important to achieve. I'm not minimalizing that at all. But it's also important along the way to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves, that we're listening to ourselves, that we're listening to other people, and we don't let that achievement mentality get in the way of healthy relationships and healthy selves.
Well, and if we, one of the things that I love to say is play the tape forward, right? Play the tape forward. So if we're not taking the time to nurture, to pull the weeds, to nourish, to water our garden, what garden are we going to have in X amount of time? And so when we talk about the achievement, are we being short-sighted by not thinking, hold on, this is a long road. I don't want to just achieve today. I don't want to just achieve tomorrow, but I want the longevity here. So how do we make that happen?
Love that. We make that happen by going back and listening to Lindsay and doing exactly what she says.
Nice. Love it when our storyteller gets all lined up like that. All right, you do the best closes. You want to close us out?
Yeah, just everybody, thanks for listening. And again, go back and listen to Lindsay again. She had so many good points to make about how we can more effectively connect with ourselves and the value of that connection with other people. We can't really connect with other people until we're connecting with ourselves. And that's what we need more of in this world. That's what's going to infuse compassion into our lives. So folks, look for an opportunity this week to slow it down. And I'm not saying all the time, but find a time where you can say, I'm just going to slow down a little bit here and listen to myself or listen to somebody else and see what it does for your connections. See how it makes you feel. Thanks for joining us, and we will see you next week on Infuse Compassion.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Infuse Compassion podcast. If you enjoyed the conversation, please share a review and like the podcast so other compassionators can join us. Until next time, let's all do something each day to infuse compassion into the world. For more information on our guests, see the show notes. For more information on Mark and Amy, go to infusecompassion.com.